counter-terrorism teams from the Victorian and Federal Police are meeting today in the wake of last week's fire at a Melbourne synagogue. Stephanie Ferrier reports.
Australian Federal Police and also Victoria Police counter-terrorism experts are going to be meeting to discuss what's actually happening with this investigation. And we understand from at least the Premier Jacinta Allen that one of the key things will be whether or not to actually classify this officially as an act of terrorism. Now, if that declaration was actually made, then that would open up and unlock a whole raft of additional police powers to be able to be used during this investigation. And we have heard from Professor Greg Barton from Deakin University, he is a counter-terrorism expert, that definitely this classification is something that probably should be made. This is what he had to say.
For terrorism prosecution charges to hold, that'll be a matter for the courts and evidence and motivation. But I think we normally wait for evidence and motivation, but I think the motivation is pretty clear here. This was not an individual hate crime attack. It was designed to terrorise a community, using violence to terrorise a community.
That's Professor Greg Barton from Deakin University speaking on News Breakfast earlier. And terrorising the heart of the community is definitely the sort of feeling of fear that a lot of the Jewish community was expressing when they met in their hundreds, gathering just near the Adass Israel Synagogue yesterday. That, of course, is the synagogue that was firebombed in the early hours of Friday morning. And we've heard from those people who attended that they want the governments to be able to do something about this. They're really concerned that it is no longer the time for words but action. We've heard from the Victorian government now saying that they are considering laws which would ban protests outside places of worship. And the government says that it wants people to be able to worship freely without fear of intimidation, harassment, obstruction or violence. And we understand that these would potentially be laws that are similar to those that govern the exclusion zones around abortion clinics here in Victoria. Those so-called safe access zones were actually introduced in 2016, which bar any sort of protests outside abortion clinics to a radius of 150 metres. So that's the sort of thing that might be introduced here into Victorian Parliament. But in the meantime, police are obviously continuing their investigations and trying to work out exactly what the motive was after discovering a bullet on the footpath. And they're trying to work out exactly how that fits into the puzzle, as well as continuing to search for 3 suspects.
Steph Ferrier in Melbourne, thank you.